Anybody seen InkBlitz? He's supposed to be here. He was going to DM in like 5 minutes. I haven't seen him.
Okay. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm here. I need. Can you just like Oh crap. I just need 5 minutes.
Anyway, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Geekery.
Yes. Welcome to Geekery. I am InkBlitz.
I am the Gneech.
And this week we are talking about preps and props. We decided to combine two topics together for this one because we don't really use props that often when it comes to DMs because we're very much long distance. But we do know a bit about prep.
Yeah, and especially in the time of COVID, props are maybe secondary to other things you can do to prepare. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
We'll try and sneak it in the end.
Yep.
But when it comes to preparing, we found that there's kind of like three types of DMs. There is the DM that prepares everything.
Yeah.
Which they often have like a game Bible. They have a lot of notes. They have a lot of NPCs that are prepared ahead of time. They have a lot of story. They are ready and going for their players to screw up everything.
Yeah, and it can be epic. It can be amazing. A campaign like that can have stuff you did way back in the first session comes back to haunt you 3 years later, and you're like, oh my gosh, but that also has its downsides of if the DM spends 3 weeks getting a campaign ready and you only play 1 or 2 sessions before the group breaks up or everybody's like, it's not that much fun, all that effort is wasted.
Yes, and also if the players just completely go a different direction than what you're expecting, most of your campaign could probably get screwed up, and that might cause some bad feelings because, well, you've spent so much time preparing this game Bible, preparing this plot, and now you have to do it all over again.
Yep. And then, so on the other end of the extreme, I'm going to change our thing around here. We've got the wings everything DM.
Oh no, I prepared it. So
I know.
How dare you?
Wow, it's appropriate. No, but seriously, the other end of the spectrum is the wings everything DM. You see this talked a lot more on like message boards and stuff than you actually encounter. It's the person, I never prepare anything. I do the entire game extraneously. Extemporaneously. Wow, we're really on base tonight. No, and it can be done. I have run games more or less like that. I mean, I did have like stat blocks and stuff ready to go, but like the where the story went was something that we just more or less did off the cuff. And when it works really well because everybody's contributing, and it's like improv theater where a player will say something and you'll riff on it and they'll riff on back and etc. But when it doesn't work, it turns into a slog because after a while, you're only one person and you start keeping all this stuff in your head and all these subplots and everything else and trying to keep it all making sense. You get overwhelmed by the players and then, you end up doing something like, aha, this character is really a shape changer. And now everything is all confused and it becomes a mess. So
I don't know what's going on anymore. What is this story?
Yeah.
But this type of DM leans very heavily on random generators.
Yes.
Name generators, encounter generators. There are loads of encounter generators, and we'll cover that later.
Yep.
But this is kind of, it takes a lot more time during the game. When it comes to preparing for a game, you kind of trade game time for prep time, and the more prep time that you have ahead of time, the more time you have to game. So if you are winging it completely, you are rolling on the random encounters table, you are rolling on your random names table. During time, you should be
pulling
gaming.
together a bunch of stat blocks from this book and that book and that book over there, and
or you're going and grabbing different miniatures or setting up maps on a whim.
Yep.
When you should be gaming.
Yeah. So, and there's a third way.
There's always a third way.
There's always a third way. That is pretty much what we're gonna advocate more or less.
Because we
And
both do it.
yeah, and that is you prepare some stuff, but not too much, and that we'll discuss what that looks like. But you have like a sketchy idea of where your campaign will probably go. Doesn't have to go that way, but that's an idea. Or we talked in a previous video about like having the 3-story arc and then
Yeah.
arcs of arcs and stuff like that. And you prep for the next session, the next session and a half.
You don't have to be completely prepared for each session
Yeah,
ahead of time.
yeah,
You'll just know ahead of time where you plan on going, and ahead of that session, you prepare. You spend an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours tops preparing maps, preparing encounters, rolling encounter tables ahead of time, so
hmm
you're not rolling them in the middle of combat
yeah,
or in the middle of the session.
yeah,
So you're doing more gaming.
hmm yeah,
And you really have to consider the preparation time as sort of uh, the DM's gaming. You are gaming
yeah.
in a
It's
way, as
the
preparing the plot and etc.
a,
But
a mini game for the game master.
yeah,
In the same way that coming up with their character is a mini game for each player. Coming
I
up
love
with
it.
all the world and background stuff.
It's so much fun.
Yep. So some general ideas on preparation. There's a couple of different things. First of all, it's good to do what I call general prep, and that is not so much preparation for a specific scenario, so much as being prepared to set yourself up for success. And so what that looks like, what that can look like, is having like a couple of throwaway encounters that if you're stuck and the players go off somewhere, you can just toss one of these at them. Just pull it out of your pocket and toss it at them like a Pokeball, and that can be
Go, Encountermon! I
yeah,
choose you!
exactly. And what those would look like will depend on your campaign. So if you've got a campaign set in a CDC port, then it's a press gang for a pirate ship. If you've got a campaign where you're slogging through a jungle trying to end an ancient curse, it looks like zombies or a zombie tyrannosaurus or whatever.
Or both.
Yeah. And it's
But yeah,
it's not connected to anything. It's just sort of something appropriate that could happen. And
and these you can use encounter tables ahead of time for this, and we kind of encourage it. Use encounter tables to create these throwaway things,
yeah,
and have several of them set up.
yeah,
Just prepared.
2 maybe 3.
Make them look like they're random,
Yeah,
but they're not.
yeah,
And your players won't care.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the use and abuse of random tables could probably be a whole nother video, but uh, the value of random encounters is that you don't get into a rut because it's been generated by outside forces, right?
Right.
So I might never have thought of creating, like an encounter with the zombie T-Rex, just to pick on that one. But the dice came up with it, and so I ran with it, right?
That was
So
great.
yeah, the random tables are there to give the DM something to riff on, rather
Right.
than just having to sit there generating it all on
They're
your own.
prompts. It's
Yeah,
like a writer's prompt. It's not for you to work completely just based off the random encounter.
yeah,
It's for you to give you an idea, to start the spark of an idea. If it were meant to be, uh, you roll to have an encounter of orcs, and that's how it's supposed to be every time, it would be boring.
yeah,
And that's not how it's meant to be. It's meant to start the story. It's meant to start the spark for whatever story that encounter is telling. It may not be telling a meaningful story, and it's still an impact for those characters.
yeah. Other general stuff, we talked about it for the Winged Guy. The Winged Guy has a lot of great tools, actually. Name generators, map generators. You can, there's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's whole tables for randomly creating a whole adventure if you really want to, including who the villain is and what kind of structure your story is going to have and all of that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And just having access to those and sort of knowing what the tools are are great ways to not freeze up in the moment when, suddenly you need,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, you need an encounter, you need an adventure, and you didn't have something ready.
Those
And
name generators, always useful. You will
yes,
always need them because you will have those characters that will say, "What's this person's name?" And you'll suddenly freeze, and you'll want to say Bob every time.
yeah.
Don't do it.
Every town has a barkeep named Bob, and a smith named Frank the Smith. So, but once you've got that sort of emergency kit ready to go, then you can start looking at the actual scenario you're looking at to run next. And there's a piece of advice that I want to say it belongs to the Alexandrian, but he may have gotten it from someone else. And it's
Who knows on the
basically,
internet?
yeah, it's basically to create scenarios, not scenes, right? So
Okay.
what that boils down to is, instead of figuring out like how the story is going to go,
Hmm.
figure out in any given location what's
Right.
there that the PCs can come in and do their thing around. So, if you got let's say there's a bandit camp, right? And instead of figuring out, okay, the PCs are going to approach the bandit camp from the north, and there's this stuff on the perimeter, they have to have this encounter to deal with that, and then there's a mini boss there that they've got to defeat, etc. Working out like this timeline of how it's going to go. Just put into the bandit camp things that should be in a bandit camp, and let the
Right.
players figure out how they're going to approach it.
Yeah.
So 4E was a real problem child in this direction, because 4E assumed that the encounters were going to go the way they were written. I'm talking about in published material. I'm sure DMs ran it different ways.
Yeah.
But in particular, I remember there was a scenario where there's like this dwarven or a Duergar encampment underground, which was actually the basis for the Duergar encampment I used in my campaign, but I ran it completely differently than it was written.
Thankfully.
But yeah, the Duergar encampment underground in the 4E module had, it had the walls and the map, and it had a very detailed battle plan of, this is how the Duergar will react when the PCs assault the gate, because that's the only thing the PCs could possibly do. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was as bad as, like, some of the characters involved like didn't even have stats,
Oh.
right? They were just sort of set pieces, and it was assumed that, when the attack happens, this guy who's standing up on this rail over here doesn't have a name, doesn't have a character sheet. He's just, Joe Duergar, is going to pull this lever, and all the other stuff is going to happen. It was all very mechanical.
It's all very railroady from the sounds of it as well.
It was, and I was like, when I was looking at this encounter, I was like, my players are going to walk up to the gate and demand entrance. They're not going to attack, or they're going to say, we're selling these fine leather jackets,
Which maybe more. Yes, that's more
Yeah.
our speed.
It really is. And there was nothing in the scenario to support that. There was no indication of like who they'd be taken to speak to, or what kind of reactions the Duergar would have. It was all just a battle plan.
We may not even go to the front gate, and we may not even attack. We may just find a way to sneak in
Yeah,
which we did.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what we did. We found a way to sneak in around the back.
Yeah, well, I mean, the scenario that we went through was so different from the way the
Yeah,
41 was written. But just my point is that if you have a scene set up like that, and then your characters do something different, you're back to being the wing it guy, because you haven't prepped. You can't possibly prep
Right.
for everything the players might do. But
and if you're not being the winged guy, if you're not trying to act on what they're doing, you're railroading them.
Yeah.
Like if you try to force them into doing the specific thing in the specific way, it's railroading them, and your players will probably react badly.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in games where I could totally see some DM had put that Duergar encampment in. We walk up to the door, say we're selling these fine leather jackets, and the DM's like, they attack you because all I have here is combat stats, right? And the players are unhappy, the DM's unhappy, the characters are unhappy, everybody's unhappy.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
Like no one enjoys a railroad except maybe the DM, but
Yeah, maybe, but
me,
usually
you're not going to enjoy it in the end.
yeah. Usually, I've found that railroady DMs are not happy DMs. But the point is, if you figure out what's naturally in the environment, and you don't care how the players approach it, all you care about is what's supposed to be there and running it in a neutral sort of way. Then you don't have this railroading problem because there is no plot they can wreck.
Right.
There is just what is there and how they interact with it, and the story comes after the fact.
And it creates a living world. It creates a world that's more believable and more able for your players to get involved in and to feel like they're involved in it.
Yeah, and to make their own stamp on it, and
Exactly.
and to choose their own adventure. You know, if you've got players who want to be smooth moving their way through the dungeon instead of hacking and slashing everything, if you've figured out the scenario and not what the story is supposed to be, then they can approach it however they want.
Right. And that's how it should be.
Now, there is a downside of that is that you do end up sort of preparing a lot of stuff that doesn't get used because you never know
Yes.
what the characters are going to interact with. I sort of assume that at any given time, probably a fifth of what I figure out is actually going to see the light of day. So, which is one reason why I also advocate not getting too deep into it. You know, figure out, okay, there's some guards over here, and this guy is a cook, and this guy, you know, all this stuff. But you don't need to figure out the backstory of every NPC involved.
Unless they ask for it, then
Yeah.
suddenly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you have to come up with it now.
Yeah.
At the same time, even though you might, some of your stuff might not see the light of day, or most of your stuff might not see the light of day at this moment, you can use it again.
Yeah.
You can reskin it. You can prepare it and use it in a later session, later on that time.
Yep.
It's still fodder. It's still there that you've created. It doesn't go away.
Mhm.
It is stuff that is, since they have not seen it, you can still use it.
Yes. Nothing actually exists until the players interact with it. So
Exactly.
but also, because you don't know what the characters are going to do, I have developed what I call the session and a half rule, which is I prep what I expect you guys to encounter, and then I prep a little more. So, if you assume about 45 minutes for an encounter and we're going to have a 3 to 4 hour session, I will prep, that would normally be prepping about 4 encounters. I'll probably prep about 6 encounters.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, like in the Burning Coast, I set up this whole situation in the village with the little old witch lady. She, she's very sketchy. Not sure what she wants. Not sure is she for us? Is she against us? Is she playing her own game?
Yes.
What's going on? And that could have gone a lot of different ways, right? You could have fallen for her schemes, hook, line, and sinker. You could have.
We almost did.
Yeah, or you could have, gone back and attacked her, or gone back and said, "What the heck, lady," or whatever. You guys just left. Like, you just, you know what, screw this, and took off.
Well, it's like we were so sick of what she was doing.
Yeah.
And, it's like she's
and
just going to twist it.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean,
no,
there's
we're not
nothing
gonna
wrong
give
with
it a chance.
you having done that, but that just means that all of the stuff that I prepared inside the village, you guys are never going to,
Right.
deal with it. So,
Yes.
so if I hadn't had extra prep done around that, I would be suddenly scrambling because, I was expecting at least half a session of dealing with this stuff, right? So, that whole half session was just thrown away, the night before because you guys were like, nah.
No. Forget it. We're not going to do this. No,
Yeah.
we're sick of it. We're sick of it.
Yeah.
We're gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be prepared for them to do that. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to have a lot prepared, but you have to have an idea of what's around the area that they are currently in.
Yeah. What can they get
Like,
to? Yeah.
What can they get to? What can they cause? What can they disrupt? Keep that in mind,
Mhm.
and because yeah, you can always tend to lean them back towards the story if they get too far off, but at the same time, don't railroad them.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, so that's why I have the session and a half rule, and it's handy.
I've picked it up as well, and it's really been helpful. I mean, when it comes to preparing, I I try to prepare a session and a half. Sometimes I'll prepare 2 sessions at a time
Yeah.
if I'm lucky, but um,
And the great thing is that's less you have to prepare next week. So
well, the nice thing that I've had in my group, is that most done has been at least in a city or near the city. So I've had most of the city prepared, and most of the areas where you can go to prepared. And if you go to this area, you will find something that's happening here,
mm.
or you have a chance to see something that's happening here.
Yeah, well, that's more of
And
those back pocket things that we were talking
yeah,
about earlier.
and so Everkeep has been amazingly easy for me. Creating a new city from scratch, that's gonna be fun.
Let's move on to props here.
Yeah.
Um,
So we don't actually use a lot of props, because we are mostly remote before everything went remote.
yeah,
You did have some props
yeah,
back when you were doing your part of DMing with
yeah. Well, I
some of
mean,
our other
I
players.
have a whole wall, like a giant Calyx from IKEA that's just full of bins full of miniatures that I've collected over the past 35, 40 years, however long it has been. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yep. And I have a bunch of battle maps from like the Arrow in the 3E when they were focusing on the miniatures game and they were putting out battle maps and things like that. And I've created my own terrain, not on the kind of scale that like pro war gamers do. You know, I don't have like a Warhammer table in the basement or anything like that, but I have created some terrain. Yeah. And we used to use that quite a bit, but you know, then Surfy moved to California, and we started moving away from doing that because, you know, on the camera people couldn't see the map, and now we're doing everything on Roll20, so we're not using physical props at all, really. But we are using digital props, and those take a lot of forms.
So physical props, people are fairly familiar with. You have handouts. Like if you have like a letter that you're going to give to a player's character, write the letter out.
Yep.
You
can
write it out
can
in
get
some,
stuff that looks like parchment paper to
yeah. If you really
store.
want it to be fancy,
Yep.
and if it has to be torn or burnt, take a lighter to it and
Yeah.
carefully,
Yeah.
carefully.
You can do amazing things by crumpling it up, folding it into a square, and dipping it in tea, you know, or
If you have,
coffee,
like,
or
if you have amulets, you can find like cheap chintzy amulets at a store or at a
yep,
garage sale.
dollar store or something, you know. Yeah,
Make it some sort of fancy looking thing, and there you go. It's a magic amulet.
yep, yeah. But for digital props, actually, I was going to do a little quickie demo here. Let me switch over to. Go ahead.
And while he's doing that, I mean, digital props come in different forms. Like you have the digital handouts, you can write up something and hand it out to your players. Something that we've been doing is music. And Roll20 allows you to prepare music ahead of time. When you go to a certain map, music starts playing, or you can set off music to go when it's a dramatic moment.
Yeah.
Or you have sound files of a dragon roaring or of lightning crashing, and it adds to the atmosphere. One thing that I think a lot of people don't consider, at least unless you're a furry, is artwork or character portraits of the characters, of either the characters that you are bringing in as a DM or the characters of the players. And there are a lot of artists who will gladly provide you a portrait of your character for money. And you can use that either as your icon or as general portraits of the character.
Yep.
And it gives everything a bit more depth.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I am literally somebody who, people pay to draw their D&D characters. So,
People will
yep,
people will accept a lot of money for character portraits.
yep,
You just have to find them.
yep. And it's not hard. It's not hard. Just go on Twitter and search for, uh, hashtag D&D and or
You
portrait
don't
or
have to pay a
something.
lot of money either.
Yep. All right. So here's a very simple uh, digital prop that I'm just sort of bashing together real quick. And I'm using Photoshop because I have Photoshop because I'm a professional artist. But you can get GIMP or all kinds of things like that. And it's just a matter
I
of
recommend Krita.
yeah. There's just it takes a little time to learn it. So what I'm gonna do here is, hey, I are a professional artist, folks. I do this on purpose. Right. All right. So
He does this for a living.
I do this for a living. Not a very good living, but I do it for a living. I'm playing. I love what I do. But anyway, so you basically you can cut it up as often as many times as you want, right? So you just sort of do this, and we're gonna create another new window, and I'm doing this for use in Roll20. So we're gonna save these as pings, and let me just put on my desktop to make life easy. So we're gonna call this treasure map 1. And then boop. Crop it down a little.
Or a lot.
Well, call this one. Go to this hop. Treasure map 2. And crop this one down. So like I say, this is just a quick and dirty thing, but I want to show you how effective it can be.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. You can. I mean, this is simple. He created this in what? It's been 5 minutes since you
literally
started doing that. Maybe
while we were speaking. So
while we were speaking, he was doing this, and now he has basically an easy little prop.
Yep.
And for much less time than you would have to create it in a like a real prop.
Yeah. So imagine, for the moment that we your characters are, here, and they find, just to make life a little different, just to make it a little more challenging, they find these random bits of something, right? And all you have to do is hand them this, and suddenly you've got a puzzle. This is a very simplistic one.
You can make it much more complicated than this, but this is a simple. It's a simple example.
Yeah. And so the players, you give them all the ability to control and move around. They're wait a minute, we have a thing here, and
if you make it go here.
Yeah.
Oh, this goes here. No, that doesn't go there.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up, barbarian.
Yep. The players spend 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes on this, and they've been fully engaged in the story, and they're suddenly like, aha, we have a treasure map. Congratulations, you have created a prop, and you've given the players something to do, something fun, something different, and now they've got the whole adventure they can go on. So like I said, it's very easy to create something that will be simple and easy. It helps that I'm a professional artist, so I can do up doodles real quickly, but
it's props, whether they are digital or physical, are a means to get the players engaged.
Yes.
And the more engaging you can make them, the better. And plus, if they are super engaging, you have less to prep for, because
Yeah, I mean,
your players may spend 20 minutes on a puzzle,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean
now
that,
you have 20 minutes you don't have to prepare for the next session.
I mean something like the Tomb of Horrors is a classic dungeon that's got tons and tons of handouts. And part of that was deliberately to chew up time, because Tomb of Horrors was a tournament module, and they had to get through the dungeon in a certain amount of time. So the more time they spend staring at the paintings on the walls of the tomb and trying to figure out what they all mean, it's less time that they have to get to the end of the adventure. So, you can use the same principle. I've got to fill up a 3-hour game session. The more time they spend staring at this handout, the less time I have to worry about, sending monsters after them or whatever. But it's a balance. It's not something where you can just lean on it all the time. It's something that you want to have as one of the tools in your DMing arsenal. So
Yeah, and of course, right now, as things are as they are. Digital props are probably here to stay, and they're probably going to be expanding, especially with Roll20 continuously growing.
yeah, or DM's Guild is full of stuff like this.
Yep.
So
Yep. So props are useful.
Yes, they are. And like I said, they don't have to be fancy. Your players will love it. Whatever you give it, whatever you give them. So
Yeah, your players love attention from the DM, and this counts as detention from the DM. It's a cool thing that DM has given them.
Yeah,
and they get to play with it.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So that's prep and props. I think we've covered most of the big hits anyway. If you have questions about it or stuff you would like us to elaborate on it, please leave us comments about it. We were originally just going to talk about prep, but somebody did specifically ask about props in the comments. So
we don't use a lot of props, but we can talk about it for a few minutes.
Yeah. And we have in the past, and so we for next time, we're still, we're looking for some new ideas. We've got the DM Credo, which I still think is an interesting topic, even though we keep not looping around back to it.
I like the idea of what is your ideal as being a DM? What is your ethics? What is your how you do things? What is what you bring to the table as a DM?
Yeah.
And also, magic items keeps coming back, because I feel like that one is going to be a bit back and forth between us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have different tastes on it, and it's just a thing.
Magic items.
I
love magic items.
I have a little more nuance than just hating magic items, but we can go into that. And the other one that we could talk about, I am starting a space opera campaign in Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm so excied for this.
Yeah. So we were talking about maybe doing an episode about weirdy campaigns. Which is, every D&D game. The cliche is elves and dwarves and going into dungeons and fighting goblins and all that jazz. What are some other weird things you can do? So you could do space opera. You could do
elves
horror.
In
you could
space.
You could do modern urban fantasy. You can do all kinds of things. And what are some of the ins and outs of that and how that would work?
Yeah, how you can flip the entire D&D genre on its head and see what else you can do.
Yeah. Yep. So if you'd like to hear about any of those, please let us know in the comments. If you have something else you'd like us to talk about, please tell us that in the comments. And as always, I would like to plug my Patreon, because that's how I make my living. And I'm also trying to spread out a little onto Twitch and my own YouTube channel.
Hey, that's mine. Yeah, hold on. What do you do?
Hang on, we'll get to yours. We're good. So my Twitch and YouTube is going to be around art mostly. I am not the dynamic gamer that Blitzy is.
Does this mean I need to get a Patreon now, so I can go into your realm?
No, it does not. I mean, you can, but
I will also plug my Twitch. I am a variety gamer and streamer. I do Beat Saber on Wednesdays. I do variety games
I love the
Friday
Beat
and
Saber.
Sunday. And I actually, on last Sunday, actually it was last Friday, I streamed
You
the
stream
creation
building the
of
character.
yeah, I was building the character. I was like, I don't know what to do today. I'm going to stream building the character, and people loved it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And of course, it's YouTube. So please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications and send us 1,700 comments so that the algorithm loves us and all of that jazz. So,
not that many comments, please. But of course, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
yep.
And
Yeah, we were a little loopy this time. We're both tired, had long days, but you know what? It's fun. So we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Ah. That was not the button I meant to hit.
You left the call. Suddenly it's got wait. That's how this works.
Well, now we know what the stinger is going to be.